Hey guys, Big Daddy Liberty here. Walking through the streets of Tel Aviv, just had lunch, and yeah, so I fly home this evening at, well, technically Friday morning, right? So 12:45 sort of vibes. So a few thoughts as I sort of trek around for what is the sort of final day here in Israel. I have to be honest, a part of me is not really looking forward to coming back to South Africa. You know, once you have a taste, now before I say anything else, I love my country. I will be coming back. This is just a thought that came my way. When you've had a taste of what a society, a functional society looks like, and Israel actually does that for you, you begin to see the nonsense that we go through as South Africans in a very different light. Now, don't get me wrong, I've always been very skeptical of the South African government in any event, and I don't necessarily hold our politicians to high esteem, the socialists that they are. But when you've been in a country like Israel and you recognize how they have many of the similar problems that we have, it's crossing the street, many of the similar problems that we have, and at times even worse, right? Especially on the water issue. Yeah, I mean, it's a desert, basically. They've managed to do really amazing things to essentially provide a climate, or rather a country where things work, right? And we South Africans are busy putting up with nonsense back home with intermittent load shedding, no electricity, no water, and we've become complacent to a large extent. We barely say anything anymore. We just sort of shrug our shoulders and go, well, you know, that's just the way things are. In fact, we've even started to say things like, TIA, this is Africa. What if I said it shouldn't be TIA? What if I said, you know, actually we are a country very well endowed in resources, and from that basis we need a strong and rephrase. We need a society that actually wises up to the nonsense and the crap that is socialism. You know, I've been chatting to Israelis here, and you know, I mentioned to them what South Africa is going through, and they're just like shocked, like what, you know? And we've still kept the same government, and I say yes, we essentially have still kept the same administration. They don't get it. They simply don't get it, and I don't blame them. You know, we South Africans really put up a crap. And then you say stuff like this, and then people go, oh, but you can't compare us to the first world, you know, history of oppression, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, well, we're not the only society in the world that's gone through oppression. We are not the only society in the world that has had racist and segregationist regimes. We're not. There's nothing exceptional about us. No matter how much we've begun to tell ourselves the story, right? And somehow we as South Africans are exceptional. No one else has gone through what we've gone through. Nonsense. I mean, Israel, from a historical perspective, and especially if you, you know, view it also from a theological perspective, has gone through some of the most terrible incursions and human rights violations against the Jewish people here. I mean, they've, over time, over thousands of years, they've had to put up with, you know, other nations, bigger nations, ransacking them, pillaging their country, chasing them out of their country. And, you know, it took them a very long time to be able to actually say, you know what, we need to build up the national pride that sees us return to Israel. That's, of course, Israeli people, Jews. To build up the national pride that sees them return to Israel, firstly, and also to establish a nation state. And that's what Ben-Gurion did essentially for this country. He helped a nation build something, build an economy, build a nation. And you see the fruits of that. I mean, you see the fruits of that in, for instance, I mean, just look around me. These people are just living their lives and enjoying an existence that comes with having a strong nation state. Whereas we South Africans, as we say in my country, dololo, man. And that's what happens, right? That is what is at stake. And the choice ultimately is still very much ours as South Africans. No one's going to save us. No one's coming to save South Africa. There will be no man in a cape. There will be no fancy bankers with black suits and suitcases who march into Luthuli House, who march into the union buildings. There'll be none of that. What it requires is people like me and you essentially fighting for our liberty and fighting for essentially a country that we can pass over to our children. If we don't do that, if we continue to support socialists, if we continue to support a statist league of arrogant politicians, and I say this, I'm not choosing which party I speak about when I say this. ANC, EFF and DA, arrogant politicians who on the one hand call you racist if you point out that their obsession with race is absolute nonsense. CC Phumzile Vandam, CCDA. On the other, they'll call you, out of touch when you actually tell them that socialism is nonsense, it doesn't work, and that what they should be doing is adopting more market reforms. Or an EFF which essentially just slanders you and goes into a fit of rage if you even say anything that essentially points out that communism and their ideology is absolute poppycock. It's been terrible for not only Africa, but the very China, for example, that they often praise is communist in name only, man. That is a market economy. Statist, yes, but it's essentially a market economy where 100% of Chinese wealth is private sector built. And when I talk about the private sector, I don't mean big corporations and big industries necessarily, but even small mom and pop shops in that part of the world. And they've had the foresight to understand that letting those people, giving them the liberty to grow an income or specifically to raise an income, grow their savings, allows ordinary people and families to be able to change their and raise their standard of living and change the destiny of a country. We haven't come to that understanding yet. I don't think we've come to that understanding yet. South Africa has never had a form of governance which essentially leans on the side of liberty. Whether you go back to our colonial years, which were stifling, statist and racist. If you go through to our apartheid years, which were stifling, statist and racist, and don't let anybody tell you different, including sanitizing any of the apartheid leaders. None of these people had the best intentions of South Africa in mind. What they had in mind was to protect certain groupings at the expense of others. And I often feel like we South Africans need to be honest about politicians. Don't defend them just because they happen to be your favorite politicians. Anyway, I just have to take that little detour. And of course, up to this current government, the ANC government, equally statist, in this case incredibly thieving, and essentially hate the idea of a free society. They absolutely despise the idea of black, white South Africans, all South Africans enjoying freedom and liberty. And we're seeing the effects of that. We're living the effects of that. And I've gotten to a point where I'm incredibly pissed off at people who tell me, oh, I'm going to vote for the ANC, I'm going to vote for the EFF, or any of this other rabble, which is essentially statist. Surely we deserve better. I mean, at what stage as a people, at what stage do we look at each other in the eye, black and white, and say, you know what, you deserve better? And equally, the other person says to you, you deserve better. And what we'd collectively mean by this is that actually we need a society which errs strongly on the side of liberty. At what point do we reach that sort of society? You tell me. So yeah, again, I look around me here in Israel and no one gives a damn about issues. People here have been given the freedom to pursue their own self-interests, and you see it, man. You see it in the quality of life they live. And you see it in essentially the society they're building. I often say we South Africans and people from elsewhere in the world, we possibly talk about their borders more than they do here. That is a fact. You talk to an average Israeli family, they don't give a flying F about borders and you know, what's happening there, etc., etc. Not to say that that's not important, but essentially it tells you what they care mostly about. And Israelis, like South Africans, are largely speaking, you know, people of faith. They are a believing nation. They are a law-abiding nation, and generally speaking, they're family-orientated. Those three things define the average Israeli. He or she is not worried about their politics necessarily. And he or she, sorry, that was literally the shawarma coming back in that burp. It was delicious, by the way. You know, my time here has really changed me, I suppose, to an extent, but also solidified and you know, strengthened my convictions that actually a freedom-loving society is what we need to become. The more you err towards freedom, the more prosperity you see in a country. Yeah, you guys literally caught me on a live one here. A part of me is incredibly angry because I look around me and I go, oh my goodness, this could be South Africa. We could be that nation, hey, of like middle-class people who enjoy a higher standard of living, who focus on families and ourselves as individuals, and we build a nation, but we're not that nation. We're not. It stupefies me. It really, really does. It really, really does. So, yeah, as I said in the descriptor, I won't lie, you know, I love my country, but I'm not looking forward to coming back because, you know, ordinary South Africans are suffering at the moment. You know, we don't have electricity, by and large, because, you know, whenever you start hearing stage 5 and 6 load shedding, that's when you know the poo-poo's hitting the fan, so to speak. Parts of my country are sitting without water. Our crime situation is out of this world. And really, as I said, it takes you traveling, seeing how other people in the world live, to really understand, to really understand how much of a fuck up my government is. And that's the first time I've ever sworn on video, and I'm at that stage, perhaps. I really am. You know, we talk a great deal as South Africans. I want to show you something while I'm here. It's actually calming me down a little bit from my little angry rant. But you know, it's gotten to that point where, you know, I talk a lot about freedom, I talk a lot about liberty, but I live in a society that doesn't have these things, so I can't show people. But having been here in Israel now, I can show you. I can show you people who just get on with things. They recognize their history, they recognize the pain they went through as a society, but hey, they get on with things. Anyway, as I trek down the stairs, I just want to show you these homies. So watch this dude. He's about to do some sort of, what's it called, parkour, I think? I'm trying to get, oh, there he is. Parkour! There you go. Alright, I want to see if you guys will essentially see. I want to go behind him so you can see exactly what he's doing. So he's still setting up his run-in. I don't know what he's about to do, but it looks dangerous as F, and my fat ass is definitely not doing any of this. Alright, here we go. There's his runner. Holy shit. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, alright. Oh my goodness.
Welcome to Israel.
Well done, man.
Welcome to Israel.
Thanks, guys. That was actually very impressive.
The New York of Israel.
There you go. And if you're wondering why everybody's dressed all funny, it's the Jewish holiday of Purim. And I actually spoke about this yesterday. Or did I? Yeah, I did. Put out vlog number 5. I think I speak about it. So Purim Sameach to those who celebrate it. But yeah, guys, back to the topic. And maybe to conclude. We as a society need to start choosing what is important to us. Do you choose the path of every other African nation and essentially every other third world nation, which has essentially chosen socialism and communism? Or do you choose another path of capitalism, market economies, and essentially stable democracies? That's what Israel is. So that any criticism that you get or that you hear about Israel from South Africa, especially from our politicians, should fucking ring hollow. It really should ring hollow, considering just how much of a stuff up they are. You know, you have these organizations like BDS, who are super chummies with the ANC, super chummies with our crooked coalition of the left in South Africa, but they say nothing about what those politicians there are doing to South Africans. If you want to talk about human rights violations, well, how about we talk about how the bad ideas, the leftist ideas, the socialism, the communism, how that's trashing the quality of life of ordinary South Africans? Why don't we have a chat about that? Why are we quiet about that? We're so busy worrying about other countries and other borders, but we're not worried about what's happening within our borders. Poverty levels which are going through the roof. A rand which is depreciating, eroding the buying power of mostly poor people. You've got to understand something. Rich people are fine. Rich South African people are fine. And you see this in all socialist nations, or at least in countries that pine towards socialism. The rich people are fine. They basically live in gated communities. They're able to afford avoiding government, by and large, and they enjoy a quality of life which is, you know, on par with anywhere else in the world. Meanwhile, it is the poor, the quote-unquote masses, which is what we've come to call them in South Africa, they're the ones who pay the real cost of terrible ideas like socialism. They're the ones who suffer. So why don't we say anything about them? Why don't the politicians really speak about them? In fact, I said this in a tweet, you know, the only time we start thinking about poor people, we start talking to poor people, especially politicians, once every 5 years, when you want to herd them into these rooms with a box in front of them and a slit on top with a shelf paper inside. That is the only time suddenly we care about poor people. That is the only currency from them, I suppose, that matters to politicians. For the rest of the term of government, for the rest of the term of politicians, no one gives a damn. No one gives a flying F. They become arrogant, they become aloof. They start telling us, believe it or not, the voters, what we need. They start deciding for us what we should do. They control us. And again, as I said, it's not just the ANC, it's not just the EFF. It is all political parties that are statist, DA included. Ask a Cape Townian, ask a rate-paying Cape Townian how much of a burden living in a DA-run area is. And I actually had to red pill myself on this one, because a lot of you know I used to work in a DA government. I used to support the DA, but it took me just actually saying take a step back and look at the facts, and you realize the DA is not your perfect nirvana spewing party either. It's not. It is very costly. In fact, I always used to say, and I'll quantify it, but essentially one of the largest redistributions of wealth in South Africa happens in DA-run city of Cape Town. To be precise and specific, through their indigent policy, which essentially sees them taxing higher rate paying individuals heavily, and using that money to subsidize poor residents. Now, you might listen to that and go, but oh, what's wrong with that, right? They're helping poor people out, but really, are they? At what point do you actually give poor people a hand up and not handouts continuously? Because that is demeaning to the poor people. Again, I'm not blaming poor people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming the poor people. I'm blaming the politicians who perpetuate a system of statism and socialism that undermines essentially the ability of a poor person to say, I own myself, I'm responsible for me, I can look after me. And being able to build that sort of society requires you give them a hand up and not a handout. You see, the handout is politics. The hand up, that's liberty. Liberty sees you wanting to build a society that is independent of politicians, that is independent and really doesn't give a flying fudge. I won't swear that much, I'm sorry for the sensitive ears, but liberty means building a society that actually doesn't care that much about what government and politicians are doing. Why? Because those people are empowered, they are essentially looking after themselves, and they can provide for their families. That's liberty. Politics is when you actually say, oh no, hang on, my politicians are better. They can do a better job. They can provide more free goods. They can control some grouping I don't like even more. They can introduce statist policies that shut down my opposition, but are great for me. Yes, I'm at that stage. I'm that annoyed. I am that annoyed today. I can feel it. And what it really took for me to get to the stage, I don't know if you can see that, some sort of party bus. I actually think that's like a group of rabbis in that party bus. And they're going around spreading the Purim message. That's cute. Guys, I've been waffling for too long. Let me end this video by saying this. Or maybe I can't say much right now because of the party bus, which is really funny. It looks like Haredim rabbis. Haredim are the ones who wear the black and like the super ultra orthodox, but they don't really like that expression. Don't call them that. All right, they're rolling by. Let me wrap up by saying this. At the end of the day, the decision is ours. It's not with the politicians, it's not with the crooked coalition of academics and SJW activists. The decision is actually with us. And you need to be a part of the solution. You need to actually get involved in the battle of ideas. You fight the battle of ideas until the last breath. And how you do that is you advocate for ideas that are not racially based. No one cares about race, and no one should care about race. What you fight for are ideas that benefit people, that actually benefit people. And the record of history is absolutely crystal clear on this one. There is no other system, there is no other way of organizing society which can hold a candlelight to the powerful forces that are unleashed by free market capitalism and freedom-orientated ways or liberty-orientated ways of positioning and organizing society. Nothing else comes close. So that whenever you hear some dumb, economically illiterate politician saying, we need socialism, or we need more statism, you look that politician square in the eye, as I told you to do with it when it comes to EWC, and you tell them, you go, listen up, you dumb, economically illiterate politician. I am tired of you. I'm tired of your terrible ideas. I say no to statism. I say no to socialism. I say no to communism. And what I say yes to, what I stand for, what I will fight till the last breath for with every South African is freedom, liberty, and a market economy that serves South Africans, that allows us to build the income, that allows us to build the savings, and from those savings we look after our families and raise their standard of living. That is the South Africa you want to fight for. Forget about race. Forget about all the nonsense that you hear from politicians. Stand for something, man. Actually be part of the solution. Because I'm telling you now, once we get to a point where we allow the politicians to win, that's it. There is no South Africa. There are no brides, none of the cute stuff that we often talk about and we post about. Then it becomes families scrambling to leave. Don't believe me? Ask the Zimbabweans. It wasn't just the rich people who left. Poor people left too. But my question is, where are you going to run to? If you don't have a dual passport as a dual passport citizen, where are you going to run to? Think about that, because at the end of the day, what we're fighting for here isn't cute little social media posts for the likes and retweets. We're fighting for our home, our ability to pass it on to kids. And I need every single one of you who's watching this, and there's not many of you, fine, spread it, share it. I need every single one of you to actually join us in this fight. I'm in this fight, and I'm in it with the intention of winning. But I do need your support. I do need your assistance. Help me, guys. Help Big Daddy Liberty get into every community. I mean, there are a lot of you who already are, and I must thank you for that. But there are a lot of you who aren't, right? And maybe you don't know. But I've been asking at the end of every video, for those of you who can, to please support Big Daddy Liberty. Throw a few shekels my way. I'm in Israel, after all. Throw a few rands my way. You know, we have a campaign as the IRR called the Friends of the IRR campaign. It's a crowdfunding campaign because we look to you for the support. Our average is about between 70 and 90 Rand per person per month. If you can do that, please spread the message, support me, support us. That is the money that I use to travel around, to speak to people, to do briefings in my Friends of Liberty tour. And that's the other thing. Inbox me if you want me to come to your neck of the woods, even if it's over a braai with a few friends. I'll come, I'll deliver a speech with hard analysis. Where's the country going? What can we do to fight back against socialism? It is a speech that I've prepared to arm you as South Africans against the bad ideas. Invite me to your neck of the woods. At the end of the day, I care more about you and your families than anything else, to be honest. If I'm to go to a very raw and emotional point for me, I care more about your families than anything else. You know, I'll talk fancy and we talk economics, we talk politics and all that, but at the end of the day, if you want to know what drives Big Daddy Liberty, it's seeing families, South African families, just being free to be them. That's what I want. That's the South Africa I want. So please support me, guys. I'm really imploring you to support me. Sign up, become a friend of the IRR, donate something monthly, and invite me to your neck of the woods, and let's chat about this. And not only chat about this, let's form a plan of action. How do we begin to push back against the socialism? How do we begin to push back against the statism? It's possible. We can do it. Anyway, that being said, don't forget, guys, SMS your name to 32823. Terms and conditions apply. Someone will call you and you can sign up there. Or alternatively, find us online, irr.org.za/join. And you can sign up a monthly debit order there. As I said, between 70 and 90 Rand. You don't have to give too much. Or hey, if you can't do any of those two, find me on Patreon and throw some dollars or shekels my way there. But it's that money which allows me to get into the fight and essentially speak to as many South Africans as possible. And I mean it when I say this. I will be traveling from the Limpopo to the Cape. Every community, rural, urban, you name it. And the conversation is, how do we push back against socialism? How do we win the battle of ideas? Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this vlog number 6. A live one to those who watched and are here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys. Big Daddy loves you guys, you know that. And yeah, share this video as widely as possible, guys. Let's get South Africans aware and into the fight. Guys, thank you so much. I'm your favorite fat boy, Big Daddy Liberty. Mañana. Bye.